Have you ever felt like you'd given everything you had to give? Because I know I have. This is where Habakkuk is as we start chapter 3. Mind you, all the things that are going on in chapter 1 and 2 are a discussion of what was and what is to come. But Habakkuk is the only thing changed so far. Okay? So if you remember, in chapter 1, he starts off, God, you're not even paying attention to what's going on. And God answers and says, oh, I assure you I'm paying attention. In fact, I'm going to send a solution, and this is what the solution looks like, and you're not going to like it. In chapter 2, God delineates all these woes, all the things that are wrong. And that brings us to where we are with chapter 3. But Habakkuk, as I said last week, Habakkuk has changed through this process of talking to God. You ever changed because you talked to God? Yeah. You ever wonder, why did I wait so long to bring it to God? What was I thinking? I had a solution. I just was too dumb to use it. So Habakkuk 3 starts off and says, a prayer of Habakkuk the prophet, and it's upon Shinganoth. And this word here basically is means ramblings. Okay? Ramblings. And if you remember, Habakkuk really means to embrace, and we talked about maybe he's, a wrestler with God, so to speak, kind of idea, embracing and hanging on. And so this is really where the wrestler is grappling, if we can, right? He's trying to get a hold of stuff, and he just starts off with this prayer and says, this is my prayer, and I'm just going to be rambly. You ever just had so much to say you couldn't sort it all out? You just had to go to God and just kind of, do a data dump, so to speak? Yeah, there it is. That's everything that's going on, God. I can't, like the little girl said, she had her alphabet, the magnetic alphabet things out there, and she threw them all on the ground, and she said, that's how I feel, God. You have to turn it into the right words, right? That's kind of what Habakkuk is saying. You know what? Here. This is what I got. It doesn't make sense, maybe. It might not be in the right order. The punctuation and spelling might be screwed up, but there it is. It's yours. And so verse 2 says, O Lord, I have heard thy speech and was afraid. Okay? So we'll stop there for a second. O Lord, I've heard thy speech and I was afraid. We talked about what God said to him. Habakkuk is being real, right? He says, I'm being honest with you, God. I always crack up when people say that. Well, to be totally honest, well, what were you being before? Truthfully, well, what were you telling me before? Right? But he says, God, I've heard what you said you're going to do, and I am afraid. Okay? I'm afraid of what you said, but I'm being totally honest with you, God. This is exactly where I'm coming from, but I'm afraid. And he says, Oh, Lord, revive thy work in the midst of the years. In the midst of the years, make known in wrath, remember mercy. Remember, he's rambling, right? This isn't necessarily in some great sequential order. No one's going to take it as the greatest thing ever written. It's just a data dump, so to speak. And so he says, Lord, revive in the works. And when you put that with what he's saying in the previous, phrase, oh Lord, I have heard thy speech and was afraid. And you look at, he says, I'm rambling. There's another way you can interpret that word rambling. Okay, and I want you to think about this in light of what's gone on with Habakkuk. It can be taken to say I've made a mistake, particularly of a moral nature. So what am I saying? Am I saying Habakkuk saying, hey, I had a moral failure, I did this, I did that? No, what he's saying is, maybe I shouldn't even have questioned you on this, God. I think that was a mistake, right? I should have just trusted you from the beginning, but I kind of screwed up. And I brought this to your attention, and I'm really afraid of what you responded with. Right? You ever been there? You just kind of tell God off, and then you think, that probably wasn't smart. Particularly when he comes through for you. And you think, wow. Yes, it's a level of maturity moment. Yeah. So he says, I'm rambling, and to be honest with you, I think I probably should have not said all this stuff. I should have just shut up. And so he says, in light of that, he says, O Lord, revive thy work in the midst of the years. O Lord, revive thy work. And literally you can translate this word that's used and translated here as revive as to keep alive thy work. That's its literal translation, keep alive thy work. You are God's work. Keep alive thy work. I mean, there's different ways we can look at this, but keep alive thy work. God, you're doing something in me. You're doing something in this nation. Keep that alive. The progress we've made, don't let that go by the wayside. God, don't let us go backwards. The enemy loves to come against the church when it starts to grow, when it starts to get things right. He loves to come against it, and he loves to distract it with stupid stuff. Right? I'm thankful for the Supreme Court this last week. Don't get caught in stupid stuff. Don't get caught in stupid stuff. There's people saying all kinds of stupid stuff. Don't get caught up in it. The reality is they made a decision, a constitutional decision. I won't take the time to do it now. I could take you through why they made a correct constitutional decision. But the people who disagree with it think the Constitution's on their side. It's not, but they think it is. And they think that there's a right somewhere that says you have a right to this, and that's not in the Constitution anywhere. It's not in the Bill of Rights anywhere. Okay? There was never the process to install that as a right. They could do that tomorrow if they want to get started on it. But the reality is they never did. Okay? So that decision was a right legal decision, overturning a really dumb legal decision a long time ago. Don't get caught up in arguing with people. There's people who want to use that to attack your beliefs. I'm not telling you don't defend your beliefs, but I'm telling you don't get wasted in the argument and tying up your time and getting angry and frustrated arguing about this stuff, because you don't need to. The battle has been won. There'll be plenty of battles in the future. You can worry about those. But this one, keep alive thy work. God's doing something in our country, and we may not like it. Just like Habakkuk, we may struggle with that. I told you, the Bible scholars tell you this is not something that looks towards the end time. And I will simply say this: it sure fits the end time. So the information that's there, I can apply to the times that I live in pretty easily. So keep alive thy work. And I'm going to say think about it. I'm not saying Selah, because that's not in here. I'm just telling you, in our Sunday school discussion, I want you to stop and think about that. He's saying keep alive thy work, and you're part of his work. Right? What he's doing, hey, I'm kind of afraid I don't totally get what you're doing, but keep doing it and keep alive your work. And then he says, revive thy work in the midst of the years. In the midst of the years, make known. So he says that twice. He's trying to create the idea of however long it takes. Because when he says in the midst of the years, we're talking about revolution. We're talking about making trips around the sun here, right? Got my tongue all wrapped around my eye teeth. I couldn't see what I was saying. So that's what he's saying. However long it takes, God. Remember, he just said, I don't know what you're doing, and I'm not real comfortable with it. But however long it takes, God, just keep your work alive. Don't stop. Keep working. Now, understand that when you read this passage, this is a passage that is, it's like a song, okay, to be sung. But it is something that is to be sung with force. This is not, attend unto my prayer, O Lord, right? This is, God didn't give me a spirit of fear kind of thing, right? I mean, it's got some punch to it. I already said it was rambly, so you might not win Lyricist of the Year award. Okay? But it's also to be sung with tearfulness, loud and tearful. You ever been there with God where you just spit it all out? God, you're going to have to sort it out, and you might have been a little bit loud about it, and you were maybe pretty tearful about it because you were just, I'm at the end of my rope. That's the nature of what's going on. And in that, he's saying, don't lose what you've been doing, and I don't care how long it takes, but God, do this. That's a desperation. That's a determination. And that's where we need to be. We need to be desperate for God and determined to follow God wherever he leads. I said last week, I talked about, when I got here to Lake County and I went through the thing and I just pinned a little chorus for myself, right? I will yet praise him. Why? Because I had made up my mind. And it wasn't like self-determination, I'm putting my foot down, I'm going to yet praise him. It was a realization that that's who I am in God. I'm not going to walk away from God. And if I don't walk away from God, what's going to happen? He's going to take care of it, and I'm going to still end up praising him. Why? Because he's God. Do I understand? No. Do I get it? No. Do I like what I see? No. But at the end of the day, I'm going to end up saying, God, thank you for what you did. Thank you for how you did it. Thank you because I couldn't see this. That's where I'm going to end up. And maybe you've never thought about it like that, but I would challenge you to take an inventory of yourself and decide, have you made up your mind? Not talking about some false declaration. Analyze yourself. Are you doing this with God, or are you going to go do something different? Make up your mind. If you're doing it with God, then stop worrying and get ready to praise him, because that's what's coming. I don't know which day, however long it takes. But that's where I'm going to end up. I might even be a little mad about that. Come on, God. I'm going through all this, and I'm going to end up praising you anyway. Could you lighten up a little, right? This is where Habakkuk's at. He wasn't when he started, but this is where he's gotten to. I'm going to praise you anyway. So he starts, however long it takes. And he says, known in mercy, and he says, known in wrath, and he says, remember mercy. And I wrote it this way. What I wrote is, you weren't, but you were. I don't understand, but be merciful. Let me explain that. You weren't paying attention. Oh, but you were. I don't understand what you're doing, but be merciful, please. That's kind of where he's at, right? I mean, it's a rambling, right? You weren't, but you were. I don't understand, but be merciful. That's when God finishes your sentences for you, right? You weren't, but you were. I don't understand, but be merciful. That's where we're at. Do you understand everything going on right now? I don't understand everything going on right now. And sometimes when I think I understand what's going on, I find out, no, I was wrong. Right? I didn't understand that at all. Thought I did. There are people that understand some stuff way more than I do. 2 weeks ago, they said they're going to release the Supreme Court decision on guns and release the Supreme Court decision on Roe v. Wade on the same end of the week, probably on the same day. Well, they were one day apart, okay? And on a weekend, because that's when you release stuff you want to kind of, not get tons of media coverage. But there's people who look at that and figure that stuff. I don't understand that. I look and go, huh? So I was in Tennessee last week, and that's part of why I'm sounding kind of raspy. Is I flew out early Monday morning, I left the house at 3:00, and flew forever to get to Tennessee at midnight. In a small little town, we found out there was a couple of things that I didn't know beforehand, all their taxis stopped running at 9 p.m. They didn't have Lyft, and there was nobody on Uber. And I'm at the airport, 13 miles from my destination. It's going to be a long walk. So I called somebody and said, I know you don't have a vehicle there, but I know somebody does, so start waking people up till you find one, Because I ain't walking 13 miles. Anyway, the taxi services that say, hey, we have 24/7 service. You call them and they go, yes, our taxi is open Monday through Friday from 7:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's like, where do you get 24/7 out of that? 24 rides in 7 days or what? I don't understand, Anyway. Sorry. Remember mercy. God, don't forget to be merciful. Do you think God needs to be reminded to be merciful? But yeah, we need to be reminded that God is mercy. God is merciful. God is mercy. But Habakkuk is just laying it, I don't understand. Could you at least be merciful? And I'm sure as soon as the words came out of his mouth, he went to that other translation of rambling and went, oh, that was kind of a mistake. There's an old song, and I sang it here a few times, but it says, what a merciful, merciful, merciful God you are. And that's pretty much all the words. What a merciful, merciful, merciful God you are. We need to remind ourselves that our God is mercy. And all the things going on, I don't have to say, God, you need to pay attention to what my needs are. You need to take care of my problems. We can say those things. I'm not telling you can't. But God already knows. God already knows where you're at. He already knows what he's going to do. He's already got it taken care of. And guess what? It involves mercy towards you. Because he's a merciful God. That's the reality. He is a merciful God. So in looking at Habakkuk 3, and we're going to break it up in a few verses. It'll depend on kind of what the thought is at the time. But the precursor to this prayer, the precursor to this song, is Habakkuk just recognizing for himself how he needs to communicate to God, that he needs to be honest, and he needs to lay it out there. And he is pouring his heart out with everything. And I would encourage you, if you're dealing with some stuff and you don't understand, it's okay to just go to God. You can even be loud. You won't scare him. Tears are a language God understands. You can tell God however you can alphabet soup it, man. Here, this is it. God, I don't get it. He's not going to freak out. Sandy and I had a bear that showed up at the house. And I hollered at it, go away, bear. And he went about a little bit farther than the length of this room, not much. And got under an oak tree and just sat down on his butt. It just stared at me for the next 30 minutes. So I called one of my buddies at Fish and Wildlife just to let him know that, he goes, well, is he just doing bear stuff? And I go, yeah. And he goes, well, you can't shoot it. And I said, I didn't call you to ask if I could shoot it. I just wanted you to know that it was hanging out, and it's hanging out, and he's not in the least bit intimidated by me. And he goes, oh, you know why that is? I said, no, why is that? And he goes, because he's the top of the food chain. You can holler when you're talking to God. You're not going to freak him out. He's the top of the food chain, okay? He'll just sit down and look at you. God, you don't have a plan. Yeah, I do. God, you don't understand. Yeah, I do. Here's all the things that are wrong. Oh. Okay, God, here it comes. I'm going to be totally honest with you. Good idea. Good plan. Do that. Be totally honest with me, because I already know the truth. I am the truth. Right? God, I'm going to be truthful. Novel idea. Right? Your salvation is wrapped up in truth. Right? Get to know God. I was talking to Randy a little bit ago. In the garden, what happened? Eve misquoted what God said, and the enemy was a fact checker. Right? No, I'm serious. Have you ever read fact checks? I mean, I know they come up and they say this needs to be fact checked, but have you ever gone and read the fact check afterwards? Because you'll say like 80% of blah, 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 and it'll say fact check, this has been proved to be false or misleading information. Then you click on it to see what the information is, and it goes, it is not 80%, it's clearly only 79.8. That's the kind of stuff they do, right? And that's what Eve did in the garden. That's what the devil did to Eve in the garden. He did fact check. If I touch this, I'm going to die. You're not going to die. He didn't address the issue. He just fact checked it. Fact checkers have proven that this is misleading or an income. Really? Get to know God, know his heart. This is what's happening in the first 2 chapters of Habakkuk, is he's finding out who God is. That's why he said, maybe I made a mistake here. Right? Maybe I shouldn't have questioned God on this, because maybe he really does have it figured out. That's where we need to be. We need to be honest with God. We can be honest with one another, although sometimes honesty with other human beings can lead to weird stuff. Sometimes confidences are broken, etc. Doesn't mean you want to be dishonest. You just have to be careful how much honest you lay on somebody at one time. Does that make sense? Don't want to create a lie. Never. But I can be totally transparent with God because he already sees through me. And I'm just kidding myself if I think otherwise. And if you truly love God, if you're truly committed to him, you're going to end up praising him anyway. So stop trying to pretend like something else is going on. What's happening is I don't understand what's happening, but I need to recognize I'm going to end up thanking God for whatever goes on anyway, because he's God. Am I making sense? I think this is critical. It's simple. It's really simple. But it's critical to the days that we live in. It's critical to growing in God. It's critical to growing in ministry. It's critical to everything we do. It's critical to having peace. Recognize he's God and you're not. Make up your mind, I'm just going to end up praising him anyway. I'm just going to end up following him anyway. I'm just going to end up doing it this way anyway. And he's way more aware of my situation than I am. I see what's in front of me, but I don't see the stuff he sees that's down the road, that's behind the scenes, that's, you have those moments when you say, well, I was praying about this, and then it didn't happen, but then 6 months later, all of a sudden, God did this amazing thing, and I realized why that other thing didn't happen. Because he sees the whole picture, not just your little snapshot, right? It's not just a snapshot. In accounting, you have 2 main documents. You have a balance sheet, and you have a P&L, or profit and loss, or income statement, okay? The balance sheet is a snapshot. On this date, this is how much assets and liabilities we had. It's great. Doesn't tell the whole story. profit and loss shows all the money we're coming in and all the expenses going out, and that you can look at and go, oh, now I see why our assets are declining or assets are increasing or whatever it is, because it's like a movie picture. Our perspective is generally a snapshot, not a movie. We very seldom see the movie. But God's the movie maker. Yes. He is the movie maker. So, remember this, what a merciful, merciful God you are. And I'm still going to praise you. And God, this prayer might be a loud and tearful song that's rambly, but I'm just going to put it out there knowing you can put all the letters in the right place. And that's it for this week.